The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, kingdomstrollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from kingdomstrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact kingdomstrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's kingdomstrollers.com.
New coffee for Expedition Roasters, Curaçao and Curaçao. This tag says drink me for a Wonderland coffee crumb cake experience. Oh my, I feel so exhilarated. And look at all of these other handcrafted themed coffees and teas they have. It's like falling down a rabbit hole into the most wonderful coffee and tea party. Now you better hurry, you don't want to be late. So head over to expeditionroasters.com to brew a little magic at your home. Behind the Ears podcast listeners, be sure to use code EARS20 for 20% off your next purchase with us. Brew your happy place.
Coming to you live from our studios on the East Coast and in the Midwest, it's the Behind the Ears podcast, because everybody does Disney differently.
Oh, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Ears podcast. We welcome all our loyal listeners who have been here since day one, and we also welcome some of you new listeners. We actually welcome all of you, but for play on words, it sounded better my way. With that being said, I am Uncle Danny. That is Mr. Chris. I cannot say wearing the red because we are both wearing red. Seems like a red night. This is Behind the Ears podcast. For those of you who do not know, we go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:45 p.m. Eastern right here on Facebook and or YouTube. And you can catch all of our shows on any place that you can listen to a podcast. Literally anywhere. I mean anywhere.
Like literally, like if you were getting podcasts from space.
Actually, you know what the funny thing is? I got a piece of mail the other day that said that we got reception on the moon. So you can't listen to us on Mars. We haven't gotten there yet, but the entire planet Earth and the moon. Something to think about.
Wow, that's That's pretty impressive. I guess you could say we are future proofed when it comes to coverage here and beyond. Danny, I'm having a great day. What about you?
I'm excited. I'm excited because things are looking up. Things have been going great on the podcast side. We are technically, not counting this show, we are one show away from our annual marathon show to raise money for Give Kids the World this coming Saturday, May 18th. 12 hours. I'm gonna do some calisthenics or something in the background because I just thought about that. Man, 12 hours sitting still. But got the coffee pot ready, got some snacks ready. We got some awesome things to auction off. We're looking to beat that number from last year. And at the end of the day, man, like we always say, the money goes to the kids.
Yeah. And the thing is, I've got my gallon of green tea all set up. We are actually doing some tests tonight live right now. That's right. Not only are we broadcasting live via our Facebook page, Behind Yours Podcast, we are also live over at the WDW community. We are live at Streaming the Magic. We are live over on Periscope. We are live over on Twitch. That's right. We've got more coverage than a blanket on a cold winter day. I mean, it is really awesome. And how many people are going to have the opportunity to watch us. And we just want to thank you to everybody who is going to allow us to share onto their pages this coming Saturday. I got to tell you something. It's really exciting because, quite honestly, we love what we do. And for some of you who have not seen us in a while, Danny and I have never gone anywhere. We've been here, kicking out some great shows, getting better every day, winning awards, loving life. And so I'll tell you what, tonight we do have something a little bit different. We actually have one of our listeners sent us an email, and Danny and I saw this message and we're like, you know what, this is a really complex situation, and we think it would be a great opportunity for us to pretty much bring her on the show. So let me go ahead and read the note first that she sent us. And this comes from Lee, and she says, "Hi, Uncle Danny and Mr. Chris. I really enjoy your podcast and try to listen to the live show as much as I can. You both have so much insight and knowledge about the Disney universe, so I wanted to reach out to you guys about a potential Disney trip dilemma that I have. Here's the situation." And she writes, "Dear Casey." No, just kidding. Wow, I just dated myself. She goes, "I have a friend who wants to go to Disney World next year with our friend group, which includes about 6 people. This is all fine and dandy, but here's the catch. This friend is a teacher, so she is somewhat of a slave to the school schedule." Yeah, I could relate. "Which means that she could pretty much only do the summertime or December. Now, I've been many times during other parts of the year, but have always avoided the summer season, June through August, like the plague. And to top it off, this would be my husband's first time to go to Disney World. And I'm afraid that going at one of the peak times might scar him. I love my friends, and they are a blast to go on vacation with, but I also want him to be able to experience a lot, and I don't want to sacrifice his first time for someone else's issue. So, long story short, I need to weigh the pros and cons of this situation and figure out if this is even doable, or if I need to say sorry to my friends and do your own thing some other time." Yeah. See, I can't even talk. Or if I need to say, you'll have to go another time of the year. Any insight you guys can give would be super helpful. Thanks in advance. So everybody, welcome. Sorry, excuse me. Wow. Something just went down.
Choked up.
I got choked up. Welcome, Lee, to the show. Lee, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. How are you?
Oh, we're doing better than I think we absolutely deserve. Lee, you've got yourself, as you said, quite the dilemma. And, first off, I appreciate you contacting us and letting us share your story here a little bit. So let me ask you this. Let's first start with some of the basics, okay? You're trying to figure out when to go. You're trying to figure out some of the pros and cons of when you're going to go. And I guess my bigger question is first off, let's talk about you and your family. Outside of you and your husband, do you have any kids that'll be joining you?
No kids, just adults.
Okay.
That's a game changer.
It is actually a game changer. So there's no kids at all between you or your friend group.
Nope.
Oh, that's huge.
That's a big deal. Danny, I think a lot of this is going to lean on your expertise on this as well today for a change, which I think, he's going to say that's great because it's going to shut Mr. Chris up once in a while. Yeah, you don't have to agree with me so quickly. Okay, so you don't have to worry about, the only person you really have to worry about is your friend who's a teacher in the sense of schedule-wise. So, okay. You were going to say something, Danny.
I was.
Okay, go for it.
So without revealing where you all are from, I'm going to roughly say probably you're not looking till the middle of June to really head down there, if at the earliest date. Right? Yes? No? Maybe? Lee?
Uh-oh. Lee?
I don't think I can hear Danny.
Oh.
You're not hearing Danny?
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Okay, so ask her.
Wait. What, Lee, did you hear Danny a little bit ago?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pose my questions to Chris, and Chris will ask them.
Gosh, I was hoping this was not going to be this way. Lee, give me one quick second while I'm going to try.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to make a quick adjustment on the fly. Everybody, you all know this is why we do some testing here and
So
there.
while he does that, and Lee's on hold, I'm going to break down where I'm going to go in this conversation, just so to keep things moving. So basically, the dilemma they're having is you're basically down to either the holidays, which would be Christmas break, Easter break, or you're talking about the summertime. Now, granted, if you're from the Northeast, you're probably not looking till the mid to late June time period for a teacher to be able to go. Now, if you're from the South, you're losing part of August. So keep that in mind, because that's a big dilemma. Because if they're from the South or the Midwest, where they get off of school a tad earlier than the Northeast, like some schools I know in Georgia get done like the end of May, middle of May. That's a game changer, because if you can go the end of May, you're beating out the Northeast crowd that's coming in the middle of June. So that's where my mind would go. Oh,
What was that?
I can hear him now.
Okay,
Oh,
and you can hear me, and you can hear me too.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Lee. Perfect. Okay, so without revealing where you're from, we'll just take a generalized guess at this point. When is the earliest you would be able to go? Are we talking mid to late May or mid to late June?
I would say probably early June, just because my husband is actually in the middle of pharmacy school, and he's going to be graduating in that early June. So kind of all lines up together.
Okay, no, people might be like, "Oh, that stinks," but you know what? I'm telling you right now, the beginning of June is not a bad option. We'll break down all your options for you, and some are going to sound a lot worse than others. I'll tell you right now, and people can disagree with me all they want. I would avoid August like the plague. It's just too crowded. It's too hot. And, you want to hit all the major attractions, and especially your husband who's never experienced certain things. Let's just focus on, Toy Story alone. Those are all outside queues. And I'm not sure if you guys like the heat, you don't like the heat, but Toy Story in the middle of August sounds like a nightmare. So before we touch on the summer, are you guys opposed to any breaks during the year, say a Christmas, a spring break, anything along the lines of that?
I would be more open to a spring break, I think, than a Christmas time.
My personal opinion, now, Chris, I'd love to hear your aspect, is then I would completely forego that trip until the summer. I feel that the spring break, and not saying Christmas is any better, it's not, because they jack the prices up. I get all that. But I feel like the spring break crowd is a month and a half long, because you are fighting with every different area that has a spring break. We were there at the when were we there?
It was like 2 weeks before Easter, so it was kind of I don't want to say it was in the middle of the spring break season, but it was actually
But
getting.
there was a lot of people there on spring break because they were even wearing their t-shirts. Family spring break trip 2019. I'm like, I thought we planned better. Do you agree with that, or do you feel that spring break is a better option than Christmas time?
I think spring break is better than Christmas time. However, let's quantify Christmas. I know from personal experience and what other people have said, like the week after Thanksgiving till about the middle of December, say the 15th, maybe 16th, actually not too bad in a sense of crowd wise. And the weather it's still cooler in the evening. It could be nice and warm during the day, but your mileage may vary on that one. The problem of it is that the closer you get to Christmas, it's like how things start building up in the sense of the madhouse. And of course, that week between Christmas and New Year's and a little bit after New Year's, depending on how the week lands, to me, that's unobtainable. I mean, it's just, I know some people say you could still have a good time. I can't deal with that level of crowds. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's about a 14. I just don't do that. So I do think that even though spring break is crowded or can be crowded, I enjoy it. I've done it a few times. I'd rather go there than right in the middle of the Christmas season myself.
All right, so then let's move over back to the summer. Can we both agree that August is just a nightmare and nobody should go to Disney in August? If you have the choice, obviously.
And I will tell you that I've been in August, both in the middle as well as the beginning of August. I mean, seriously, I think when you go to August, it really changes everything and how you actually do Disney. That's just my 2 cents.
All right, and then moving into July, I'm gonna say you want to avoid that July 4th week. You have a lot of people taking extended 4-day trips, 3-day weekends. However, I think this year it actually falls on a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, which is absolutely horrendous. If I'm going to scroll through here, it's a Thursday this year, which is actually even worse because then a lot of people will take that Friday off and they wrap it into a 4 or 5 day weekend, depending on their work schedule. So that week's out. So that basically leaves you the month of June and, in our opinion, 3 weeks in July. And if I don't know, now let me ask you, Lee, does you and your group, we'll call it, how do they feel about the heat? Is the heat an issue with anybody in your group?
I mean, I don't think so. We're from the South, so I think we can all handle it.
Okay. All right, that's not bad. Here's my only problem with the scenario that you posed us with. Star Wars. Because we can go and we can track all crowds and we can track lines for you, and we could try to set you up as best as we humanly can. This is a beast that we've never seen.
Actually, Danny, I think that actually brings up a better question. Lee, are you thinking about possibly this summer, or are you thinking like more of like either this summer or next spring break or next summer? What is your actual timeline?
It would be obviously not this summer, but it would be probably summer of 2020.
Okay, because I think Danny hit on.
Oh, that's huge.
That is I think that's why, Danny, what you just said makes a real big difference, because there are still some variables in regards to Galaxy's Edge opening that we have yet to really fully understand. And because we know that this year, at the end of this August into September, which kind of goes outside of the window of what Lee is thinking anyway, in a good way, is going to be, pretty much out of the question. But for next spring or next summer, my take on it is that until we really know about what Galaxy's Edge is going to do for crowds, stay away from Hollywood Studios.
That's tough, though, for a husband who's never been to Disney, though.
Oh, I'm not saying it as a hard and fast rule.
I know, but I'm just saying, because I mean, you are going to miss heavy hitters. Take Toy Story and Star Wars completely out of it. You're still missing Tower of Terror. You're still missing Rock and Roller Coaster. You're still talking about 2 of Disney's main thrill attractions you're going to miss. Now, I will say this, though. I think, Lee, you've actually lucked out. And hear me out with this. So you're talking about the summer of 2020. That could be a very interesting summer because 2019, you're going to have a lot of people geared down and ready to go for Star Wars. 2021 is the 50th anniversary. I forecast a extremely busy year no matter when you go in 2021. 2020 is that interesting year where I think people may lay off a little bit. Not saying not saying anything's going to be dead. You're still going to have your massive days, but I think we might see a downtick in 2020 for attendance solely based on the fact of you've got everybody who spent a lot of money in 19 doing all their Star Wars stuff. Star Wars is now a year old, so they're going to be working their kinks out. They might be adding, you're going to have other things opening, Space Restaurant Epcot, Ratatouille, Tron over at Magic Kingdom, but some of that stuff, if not a majority of that stuff, is not opening until the next year, and they're going to be trying to pump out a lot of stuff for 2021. So I actually think in an odd way, going in sometime in June in 2020 might be the steal of a century, and you're not going to have to worry so much about your husband. Now, granted, my number one tip to tell your husband is tell him to pack his patience. You're still talking about in any park, any given day, 70,000 people. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You're going to have lines, but you're a listener of the show. You're a fan of the show. I'm sure you listen to other fantastic Disney podcasts out there. I'm sure you're an educated person. Your group is probably very educated. Read, research, listen, because if you use your fast passes properly, if you set them up correctly and you use them throughout the day properly, and you plan for how your group likes to travel, you plan your ADRs properly, you learn the little loopholes in the system on how to bounce things around without getting charged and how to move fast passes or when to use them. I think your husband might be able to tolerate the lines. Also, if say there's 15 rides in a park, just make sure he understands that you might not do 15 rides that day. It all depends on his mindset, your group's mindset, your mindset of when you walk into somewhere, what in your honest opinion do you need to do to make that day feel accomplished? What do you need accomplished during that trip to make it a successful trip? And I think that is something where you as your group need to figure out, because if someone wants to ride 10 things in one day and it's a busy day, it's just not going to get done. Even if it wasn't busy, it's going to be tough to get it done. But it's all going to be about just doing your homework, in my opinion, Chris.
So so I think we've really kind of covered the idea of crowds along the lines of when you want to go. I kind of think that summertime is going to probably be the best bet for you guys. Either that or even spring break will probably be decent, but again, no one really knows. And like was commented on earlier, people are thinking next summer is going to be kind of crazy for at least Hollywood Studios because of Galaxy's Edge. So let's put that aside for a second. Well, before we do, let me ask you this. If you had a preference, what would you say? Just kind of given what we've talked about so far, what would you think would be your timeline?
I mean, I would like to say maybe probably the earliest part of June, I would say, just because maybe not all the kids are out of school yet, or maybe people are just kind of maybe starting to get settled into the summer. That's kind of my thinking. I'm not sure what you guys think about that, but that's kind of where I'm going with it. Just like the earliest possible kind of like second that we can go, let's just get out and go do it.
Kids, good. Yeah, but you don't have to worry about kids. I still think the minute the kids get out of school for the year, we're out of here.
Yeah.
That's well, in case you're a teacher friend, I guess that does still kind of work. I personally like the beginning of June. I've done it in that time frame before. It doesn't get too busy. It doesn't get too hot. It's still very nice, and I think it's a good time. So you know what? For conversation's sake, let's call it the first half of June for right now, and that way we can base some of our other preferences or other assumptions on that. Danny?
No, I mean, June, I think if you're targeting that, I'll speak solely from people I know that are teachers in the Northeast most of the time, and I'm trying to rack my brain. It's been a long time since I've been in high school, but you're usually in the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. You're basically in that June 10th to June 18th range of getting out, and more likely than not, parents don't pull their kids out 2 weeks to go in school. Not saying it doesn't happen. It just is not, you're not going to get the influx. So I feel like that first half of June is going to benefit you. Yes, you're going to be rivaling the part of the Midwest, most of the South who are out already, who might be traveling there. But I would take, we'll call it 2/3 of the country compared to, the entire country being off at the same time. Just a quick idea. I mean, we're talking heat wise, but you're from the South. It's not the end of the world. You're looking about 2 degrees less on average a day in June to July, 3 degrees less from June to August. You're looking about 12 possible days of rainouts compared to 13. So weather wise, you're basically planned for an afternoon rain at 3 o'clock, and it's going to be 93 degrees. That's the best forecast I can give you for June of 2020. But I truly believe the earlier you can go in June, the better off you're going to be crowd wise. Now, I hate to say it, and you get down there and it's a madhouse. I mean, you sound like you've been to Disney enough times. That you can listen to us, you can read touring plans, you can do a million things to research crowd control. At the end of the day, it's all about knowing. It's not about knowing anything. It's about walking the park and realizing if that park is the right park. The one thing I always recommend is, say all the parks are open at 9 a.m. and you decide it's Magic Kingdom. At 11 o'clock, if you're walking through a Magic Kingdom and you're like, wow, Magic Kingdom is packed, open up that My Disney Experience app. Go check the wait times in other parks, and that will strictly dictate to you whether or not Magic Kingdom is the lightest, the moderate, or the heaviest. And if you have the hopper, or your group is willing to hop a little bit and move, well, that's the best way to crowd control, because not every park is going to be heavy.
Yeah. And I would agree with the park. I think the park hopper, while some people say it's a question of whether or not you need it, or whatever. I find it to be somewhat cheap insurance. I really do. Because you're just not sure. And so this gives you a little good bit of a get out of jail free card. So,
and for example, we have someone commenting over here. Sandra says, her kids are in schools in Ohio, and they're out May 23rd. So yeah, basically the South and the Midwest, you're going to be rivaling, but once again, the Northeast, you're perfectly clear. We get too many snow days.
Yeah, and at the same time, Jerry says here, don't micromanage your day. Always have a plan B, and don't stress out if something doesn't go your way. Relax and have fun, and remember, you're in Florida. So that is one thing to take into consideration. Now, you were also talking to me before the show about your ideas in the sense of lodging, because I do think that this does play a role in an adults only trip. I think the resort plays a much bigger role with that type of trip rather than just planning the parks, because as a person that does adults only trips, I will say that you have a couple choices, because you want most likely a resort that has some good dining, has a nice pool that feels like you can relax there, has good transportation options, or possibly, other, I don't want to say adult only stuff, because that doesn't sound right. Like, does it, do you want to have a good proximity to a spa or something to that extent? Because, like, as odd as it sounds, I love going to Saratoga for an adults trip, because it's got the spa, it's got some great pools. You got Disney Springs literally right across the water there. But you also mentioned that you were thinking of one of the Wilderness Lodge locations.
Yes. I think really that's just because, that's always just kind of been my home resort. That's where I grew up going to, and, with my family. So it's really more of, I guess, just a personal preference. But I mean, I would definitely be open to other resorts, but just having that ease of access to get to Magic Kingdom has always been kind of really kind of at the top part of my list, just because I've always done the park hopper passes in the past. Maybe we go to another park for the first half of the day, but I felt like growing up we would always just end up back at Magic Kingdom in the evening time, just as I guess part of the day break. So that's at least just kind of what I was thinking in my mind, but I'm open to hearing other ideas, or just kind of keeping it fresh, because obviously I'm not the only person in my group, so I don't know what other opinions everybody else might have, but at least for my own, I would probably say Wilderness. But
now, do you feel like I'm going to run off of what you just said there, do you feel like your group would be more inclined to stay at a deluxe compared to a moderate or value?
I don't know. I mean, I would. I've never stayed at a moderate or value before.
And you've traveled to Disney with these people before?
I'm sorry, what?
You've traveled to Disney with this group, similar to this group, at least?
No, I have not. This is the first time we're going to Disney together.
Okay, that's interesting. That just because I know how I like to travel, but I understand that certain times, when you're traveling with a group, it's a bit tougher. Trust me, I travel with my family, and I know that my taste and my money is different than other people's money. And where I might value staying at a deluxe, they might say, but it's just a place to put your head down. And that changes a lot, on a lot of things. People might say, oh, Disney transportation, it doesn't change that much. If you're adding an hour each way extra onto a trip, from park to wherever you're going back to your hotel, that does add up. By 5-6 days into your trip, that extra wear of standing, I took 2 buses when I stayed at Wilderness Lodge. I took the boat most of the time. And I also used a great invention called Uber, but the boat was never packed. It was always wonderful. The only time we didn't take the boat is if the boat didn't go where we wanted to go. And unfortunately, Epcot is where I assume most adults like to cultivate, because that's where my adults like to cultivate, is usually at Epcot. And that's where, that's the thing, is our next trip, where if we do Food and Wine or we do Flower and Garden, whatever the next trip may be, outside of me and Chris, because, with the business, we stay on a budget. But, personally, no, my next time, realizing that we went for Flower and Garden, we stayed at a very beautiful hotel in Wilderness Lodge, and I love the boats, my favorite Disney transportation. But realizing how much time I spent at Epcot, I'm going to stay at an Epcot resort because I paid a similar price to what an Epcot resort would have been. So that's another question too, is where do you, if you're going for 6 days or 5 days, where do you see yourself frequenting the most, which park? Because then that would also dictate where to stay, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and another thing that crossed my mind, and I saw Chris Hiller, a man on the street, mentioned it. Just do keep in mind, the summer months, you are always going to battle hurricane season. So something to keep in mind.
No, I'm gonna throw in a little bit of the other side of that. Danny says that, and it's a very valid point. I personally don't worry too much about hurricane season, because there's really not much you can do about hurricane season. However, if you're going to be stuck in the middle of a hurricane, Disney is the place to get stuck in the middle of a hurricane.
I'll tell you what, I said it to Chris last hurricane that Disney had. I contemplated, and I got ridiculed on the interweb. So I'll take my heat where I take my heat. I said next hurricane that I know is 100% hitting Florida, I want to fly down a couple days before and go to a Disney resort, because I hear it's absolutely wonderful to be stuck at a Disney resort during a hurricane. So, it is what it is. People have their own weirdness.
Well, I can't criticize Danny at all, though, Lee, because I am the person that actually flew down a day early to get to Disney before a hurricane actually happened back a long time ago. And the last words the person from American Airlines said to me as I was changing my plans to go into the hurricane. She's like, "Well, sir, your flight's all changed. God bless you and be safe." And it was like, yeah. But that I personally wouldn't say,
I wouldn't not book a trip because of the possibility of a hurricane, but it is something to keep into the back of your mind. Maybe if you want to be the cautious person, that would be during hurricane season, be the one time I might say splurging for vacation insurance might be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about your traveling party and hotel rooms in general, because you did mention to me offline that you were contemplating possibly renting DVC points, which is a really good way to be able to get a nice deluxe room at a cheaper cost point. No pun intended. I meant to ask you before this, and I'll ask you now. If there's a group of 6 of you, are you thinking to to have you all under the same roof, or are you thinking of possibly splitting up rooms a little bit? Either two and two, or maybe one suite, one regular room, or possibly even a grand villa where you can each have your own room in one big gigantic place. Not necessarily also sure how that would fit into a particular budget. What were some of your thoughts on how you would do your lodging, and do you have a specific budget for your lodging? Because I think that does play a role, and I think I think there's different options that I think you guys would be happy with.
Yeah, I mean, for the 6 of us, I think we're pretty close enough that if we all ended up under the same roof, I think that would be perfectly fine. I mean, the first Disney trip I ever took, there was 8 of us as a family, and we all stayed in a 2-bedroom villa, which ended up working out great for us. So I could see maybe something similar to that, splitting up amongst us. I mean, I'm really open to anything, but I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to all of us staying under the same roof.
Okay, because I think if that's the case, I do believe a 2-bedroom villa would really be helpful, because
Wouldn't they need a 3-bedroom?
Not for 6 people.
Well, if they all wanted their own bedroom, because I mean, someone's getting the short end of the stick and getting a queen size sofa.
Well, they could
living room
for it. They can okay, so I do agree with Danny. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you can have 6 people in a 2-bedroom, but yeah, you're right. The 1-bedroom is going to have 2 queens. Or wait, let me make sure I'm clear with this though. There are some DVC resorts that have what they call a dedicated 2-bedroom, where they do have 2 queens in 1 bedroom, a king size bed in the master bedroom. Then there are some that have, lock-offs, which is a 1-bedroom villa with a lock-off for a studio villa, which in most cases outside of Old Key West, that second bedroom is going to be a queen plus a sofa bed. So the fact of the matter is that if you really want to do this where everybody has their own room and things like that, but still under the same roof, grand villa, yes, it's a splurge on points. It's a splurge on dollars. It's not necessarily the most cheapest way of doing things, but it gives everybody the most room. And if I had a choice to do it again, I know there's a lot of grand villas between the different DVC resorts. My favorite, the grand villas over at Animal Kingdom Lodge, Jumbo House. They are the largest grand villas on property, and they are absolutely fabulous. You will spoil yourself beyond belief, and just one epic adventure. I will tell you that. And the best way to doing that is booking early and renting DVC points. That's what I would probably have to say. But yeah, it's either that or a dedicated 2-bedroom at, let's see, I've done dedicated 2 bedrooms at Animal Kingdom Lodge, and there's others as well. Meredith actually here says Beach Club has dedicated 2-bedroom, king bed and master, 2 queen, 2 second-bedroom, pull-out sofa, living room. I thought so. I just haven't been in one of those in the Beach Club yet. But you're going to have to. But I have to agree with Enrique. He's saying, "Hey, you gotta book that Grand Villa at 11 months."
That's true.
I think that is one of those things. So, I think you would have to do that. I'll go ahead and mention this. I'll give a shout out to dvc-rental.com. I think, talk to Scott over there. I think he could treat you right. He can give you some options in regards to what you could afford. And then, you can play around with it, because you may want to consider that, how you would want to do that, whether or not it be either A, same roof, or at least B, same resort, maybe. Sometimes it's cheaper to get three studios, but all in the same area. I've done that before with other couples. Kind of depends on what you want to do.
I will say with the DVC rental points, obviously if you give it enough heads up, the 3-bedroom villas, the 2-bedroom villas, they're attainable if if you do it around the right time. Speaking specifically for DVC-rental, just popped on their site, and I just scrolling through, they have stuff from, obviously not in your time frame, unfortunately, too far in advance, but from May to December, they have a bunch available. But I will say, if you're looking for the steal of a century, it's going to be a studio or a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom. You rarely see one of those 3 bedrooms pop up there. But to just give you an example of where you could possibly be, there's nothing long in the month of June that's available. But something that caught my eye happens to be the week I'm on vacation, so it caught my eye. July 27th to August 1st. 5 nights in a studio. Now, granted, I get that it doesn't fit your party need, but say everybody wants to stay moderate and you say, heck, I want to stay deluxe. That's what I'm going to do. You could be staying at the Animal Kingdom Jambo House with a studio for 5 nights for $1,500. You're not getting that price going directly through Disney. You're just not doing it. So something to keep in mind, obviously, going through a third-party site, make sure they are a reputable site. That is the one thing I barring points from people is wonderful, but having the security of it being a Disney affiliated site like a DVC-rental is a much more secure way of doing things.
Definitely.
I think your lodging is actually, in my opinion, going to be the most difficult decision to make as a group, just because I'm wondering what kind of other desires other members of your traveling party would really like, but at the same time, I know you want to make sure that it's going to be fantastic when it comes to your husband's first time going, and I think that's important. Like you said, you don't want to scar him. You don't want to scare him. And I know I'm not trying to, easy for me to say. I'm really actually saying that sincerely, because I know we can joke about, a spouse's first time to Disney and things like that, but it's a real thing to be concerned about. What do you think? I hope I'm not going to word this question right the first time. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But what are some of the fears that you have in regards to your portion of the trip, meaning just you and your husband? What are some things that you would like to, I'll say, accomplish or impress on your husband that you think that would either make or break the vacation? What are some things that concern you the most that maybe we can help you through?
Well, I think probably my largest concern is, that I don't want to set any any extreme expectations. And, I think that, that should be the case for every trip. But, my main concern of him even liking Disney, I think is not as high now, because I just took him to Disneyland back in August, and he really seemed to enjoy it.
Okay.
So the Disney magic part, I think he's getting more behind. I think, but it's just like Danny said earlier, it's just setting that patience of, I want to make sure that he's able to maybe not necessarily experience everything, but to get a dabble in everything. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think.
And also,
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, good. I was just gonna say, being able to dabble in everything, and I think doing that in a trying to do it in the most least stressful way possible, I think is probably key. Even when we went to Disneyland, we took breaks every day. We didn't take a break on the first day. We went hard on our first day at Disneyland, and I could tell it kind of wore him down a little bit. But I really think that breaking it up is in making sure that we're not stressed out while we're there, trying to make sure we get everything done is probably my highest priority.
Yeah, because I mean, here's just my general rule when it comes to traveling with other adults. You have to set the ground rules while you plan, before you even buy the first plane ticket, rent, get the room set up or whatever. Because I've heard so many people talk about how they are going with their friends and they're all hyped up about going and it's going to be great. And then they come back hitting each other because of just how things worked out. Now, we travel with some friends, neighbor friends of ours, and we absolutely love it. Why? Because, we talked about these things beforehand. We all go to the parks pretty much at the same time in the morning. We tend to do different things as the day goes on. We tend to meet each other for some kind of nighttime spectacular. We'll have a meal or two together throughout the time, but we try not to overly overwhelm ourselves with each other's company. And I think that, and so that's something we will have to plan for. But at the same time, I definitely think that having those kind of boundaries, or even asking your husband as you're planning what he's expecting from this, you may find that to be two different things too. He might say, you know what, I really want to just hang out with you most of the time. Especially if you guys just came to Disneyland. Walt Disney World is going to be much bigger of an experience for him. And I think that's just something to consider. I mean, in other words, you have to have an escape plan from everybody else. And I think your friends would understand that. And at the same time, they may want that too. So, by the way, I forgot to ask, how long of a trip were you thinking of going?
I think I would like to go for a week. I think just, that's kind of, at least in my mind, for a first trip, I feel like that would be, I think it's 6-7 days, something like that. Maybe like 6 days, 7 nights or something, like a Sunday to a Sunday. I think that would be probably plenty, at least in my mind, would be plenty enough time. But I haven't done a lengthy trip in a while, just because, I mean, it's gotten to the point where, if my family went to Disney, we would be totally fine with going for 3 or 4 days, because we would just do the things that we would want to do and be perfectly content and happy and go home satisfied. But, but since the park has grown, since I've done a lengthy trip, I mean, does that seem a proper amount of time, I would hope?
Oh, I think so. A week? Yeah. I mean, the thing of it is here's the thing. If you're used to going, I'll say in the off season, which we know doesn't really exist, but if you're usually going in like the fall or spring or winter times where the weather is cooler, you will not have the same problems that you have when you go in June, because it's going to be hot. I find that in June it's hot. In July it's holy crap, it's hot. In August, it's, oh my gosh, fire, hot. And the problem of it is that your body reacts to it differently. Now, you mentioned that you're from the South, so that may not necessarily be as a big of a shock to your system as a, person from the North like myself. But at the same time, I think that for a lot of people, trying to tour a lot at Disney when it's hot out takes a lot out of you. And you do tend to go slower. So you tend to need a few additional days to try to accomplish the same things that you would normally accomplish during a cooler time of the year. Even if it is busy, like I still think I got a lot of stuff done during a shorter spring break trip, mainly because I wasn't exhausted because it wasn't, 95 degrees every day.
But to argue that point, though, you're an avid Disney traveler, and your expectation of how successful your trip was might be different than the person who doesn't go to Disney often.
Right.
Successful trip would be. Things to weigh out, all I'm saying. Do you have any questions for us, Lee? Is there anything that we did not touch on? Is there anything that you had in the back of your mind and we just didn't cover? Anything like that?
No, I think you guys really, hit it on the head, and especially with, Chris covered some things that I hadn't really even thought about, with traveling in a big group like that. Whether or not it's better to stay together the whole time, or maybe it's better to take some breaks and have that, be able to be a, part of the equation for success. But I think you guys pretty much, at least helps me start to know where to research and where to look. Especially with lodging, that will be a really big question that I think will need to be talked about with the group. I think there's a lot of great jumping off points, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to kind of talk, with me through it, at least through the starting point, because we hadn't even gotten to the starting point yet. That was kind of how stuck I was with trying to, I was such in a rut of like, I can't go in the summer. I can't go in the summer. So I'm glad it puts my mind a little bit more at ease.
Yeah. And, the other thing is that, we actually have had a few people make some comments saying, Sandra makes a comment saying, that's why she gets separate rooms. One person, Chris mentions, hey, bring lots of water, cooling towels, long sleeve fishing shirts are the best clothes to wear in August if you happen to go then. Justin makes mention, most of all, when you go, don't be disappointed if plans don't go like you wanted them. Be patient, have fun. And to be very honest, I agree with all of that, but no trip planning conversation would be complete if we didn't touch on dining for at least a minute.
You're about to blow her mind. She can't handle all this right now.
No. Trust me. She needs to hear this, Danny, because
you're going down a rabbit hole at 53 minutes into this show.
No. Trust me. I got a plan, man. I got a plan. Okay. So here's the thing. Because one of the things you'll have to figure out along the lines of going as a group is quite honestly, are you going to dine together? Are you going to dine separately? Are you going to split it out? How are you going to do that? And the reason why I say that is because plans change, and it's harder to get tables at table services for larger groups.
That's true.
So that's what I'm saying. So your planning will have to include trying to start your dining at 180 days out, regardless if you use any sort of dining plan. That's going to be my biggest tip, especially if you want to get dining as a group. Now, this is also the part where you say, hey, my husband and I want to go and have a really nice romantic dinner over at California Grill. And you kind of just hint to them by saying, hey, we're going by ourselves. You can go anytime you want, but we're going to go do our thing, type of thing, and sometimes you don't be like nonchalant about it. You just pretty much just say, hey, listen, my hubby and I, we're gonna go, and this is something very special. We're gonna celebrate. And so you kind of have to plan some of those things out. And
see, I'll throw one more monkey wrench in.
Huh?
What type of eaters are they? Because this is where me and Chris are going to differ very bigly on. Bigly? I think that's a word. I just made it a word if it's not.
I like that.
The biggest thing that we're going to differ on here is I value the dining plan at a much different rate than Chris does the dining plan. So that's another thing that you, your husband, and also your group need to consider when, breaking down some of these restaurants. Now, granted, obviously, like Chris said in the beginning, plans change. But when you have this large of a group, and if say you do plan on having a lot of dinners together, start looking over those menus, not saying those menus are going to be exactly what they are when you get there. But if you start to look at a menu and realize, wow, I really want to try that. Really, I want to try that. And all of a sudden you start realizing everything is $30, $35, $40 a plate. That's when the calculator needs to break out. And that's where you're like, is the dining plan worth it for me or not? That's another, and that's, that's a topic for another episode. So this is what I want to do. Oh, okay.
One last thing though. You probably don't want to do the dining plan if all of you are under one roof, one reservation, because it means all of you have to have the dining plan.
Very true.
Just kind of throwing it out there. It does throw, it throws even yet another monkey wrench in the works, because you can't have one couple do their thing, another couple do their thing, unless you all have separate reservations, separate rooms. Yeah. Just something else to take into consideration.
So I'll leave it like this. Lee, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope we were able to answer or at least put you in the right direction. What I will ask is, as time goes on and the planning starts to happen and, everything starts getting lined up, I would love to A, do a follow-up, but B, I would love for you to bring us on this journey of your process with this group. And I'd love to see by next June, whenever it is, by, as the time goes on, I'd love to see from where you started to where you ended up. So we would love to absolutely have you back on, but also we would love to be able to talk to you and, share this journey that you're going through, because you're going through a lot of things that all of us go through. We all have traveled solos. We've all done family trips, just couple trips and big group trips. So, and I think some of the roadblocks and speed bumps that we hit, we can help steer you around and guide you through it. But you might run into pitfalls that we've never run into. So it could be an educational thing, not only for you, but for everyone.
Well, that sounds great. And I would definitely take any advice and given you guys that I could that could come my way. So I would be definitely down for that.
All right, Lee. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure from me. I thank you for joining us tonight.
And Lee, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and put you on hold for 1 second as we close up shop. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Danny. I love talking about trip planning with our people. I know we don't always do trip planning episodes, and it's just a great opportunity for Lee to really try to help find out what would be great for her group of adults only. I just think that's going to be a great time no matter what she does and how she does it. But I'm hoping that she will check in with us later, even if it's for a few additional tips and tricks to get through. And everybody who's listening, just a reminder, you are more than welcome to drop us a line over at behindearspodcast@gmail.com or send us a message over at the Behind the Ears Podcast Facebook page. And we would love to be able to help you out. And while we may not be able to have everybody on the show that drops us a question like that, we will certainly like to bring your question up on the air. So anything else going on, Danny, that you'd like to bring up before we take off on this fine Tuesday evening?
Just get ready for Saturday. Simply that. This office will be in somewhat of a better shape. Not fully done, but at least a little more presentable. Listen, you're going to hear this as an ongoing mantra for the rest of the week. You'll hear it over and over again on Saturday. we really don't ask anybody for anything throughout the year. We don't have a Patreon account. We don't take donations. Do we sell merchandise? Sure. But I think if the hardcore people who listen to us all the time have maybe heard us push our merchandise twice, 3 times in a year would really be an extent. This is the time of the year where the last 3 years we have always asked people to open up their purse strings, open up that door to their heart, and donate, whether it's $500, either whether it's $5, $500, $1,000, whatever it is, to help raise awareness and help. I don't want to say find a cure, but just help enrich these children's lives and help give kids the world. Continue to be able to help these children and their families out. Donations are always wonderful. We'll get that link up and running for you guys. And obviously, of course, we're going to be doing, for the first time ever here, we're going to be doing a silent auction. We'll get that details out to you. We got some really amazing things coming out this year. And as always, just, some giveaways. So just get ready. Saturday, May 18th, guys. We do appreciate everybody coming out. Chris, take us away.
Alrighty. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home.
And thank you all for joining us here on another episode of Behind the Ears Podcast. Once again, I am Uncle Danny. That was Mr. Chris. This was Behind the Ears Podcast. We go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:45 p.m. Eastern, right here on Facebook and or YouTube. You can catch us on all podcast catcher platforms. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms, like Chris mentioned. Trisha would kill me if I didn't mention it. Please join the WDW community Facebook page, 4,000 members strong and growing. With that being said, everybody, once again, May 18th, Saturday, 12 hours, 12 in this chair. It's going to get crazy. We're raising money for Give Kids the World. We have a star-studded lineup of Disney personalities, Disney podcasters, and, a couple segments of just me and Chris, because we want to keep it fun and light. We'll be doing raffles, giveaways, and a silent auction, all in the name of kids. With that being said, everybody, hope to see you on Saturday. Hope to see you on Thursday. I hope you all have a wonderful and productive week. Don't forget to tuck your kids in tight, wear your seatbelts, and for old time's sake, heck, drink that cranberry juice. I'm Uncle Danny. Until next time.
And I'm Mr. Chris. Sorry, the cranberry juice part always cracks me up. Hey, guys, we're all so glad to have you here. Hey, doesn't matter if this is your first time or 100th time joining us. We're still very thankful that you stopped in to see us and to say hi. By all means, we can't wait to see you on Thursday, and we definitely can't wait to see you guys join us over on Saturday. And if you have any questions about the show, especially the marathon show, drop us a line, behindyourspodcast@gmail.com, over at the Behind Ears Podcast Facebook page. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. But my friends, tonight is over. And until we meet again, we hope you have an absolutely magical day. Take care.